If you're someone who's been through a difficult season and wondered how you're supposed to keep moving forward, this episode is for you.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion, my words got power, my thoughts have action, motivation, stay gracious, that's greatness, be audacious, motivation, be audacious, innovation, be audacious, inspiration, be bold, motivation, be audacious.
I was given up because my birth family were too overwhelmed by the reality. Now, one could say the reality of having no arms. Sure. I like to say it was the reality of 1960. But the reality is our past should be in our past. Our future is what we should be looking for. And that was what I grew up with in Yorkton, Saskatchewan in the 60s and 70s. But a lot of people think my life was miserable. It was the opposite. So that's why I decided to take advantage of my story and share that with people, not to brag on what I've done, but to challenge people and make them look at their lives and say, what are you seeing? What are you looking at? Are you seeing what you got, or are you seeing what you're missing?
Because sometimes the people who teach us the most about resilience are the ones who have faced challenges most of us can barely imagine. This podcast is all about helping you unlock your inner greatness and live your best audacious life. Today's guest is Alvin Law, a Hall of Fame motivational speaker who was born without arms as a result of a birth defect. Now, for decades, Alvin has traveled the world sharing a message of resilience, gratitude, and personal responsibility. He's also a certified speaking professional, one of the highest designations in the speaking industry. And with Professional Speakers Day just recently celebrated on March 14th, it felt like the perfect time to bring someone on the show whose impact and longevity in this profession is undeniable. And and on a personal note, I remember seeing Alvin speak more than 15 years ago, and his message has never left me. It really has. It's always stayed with me. So having him join me on the podcast today is something I'm genuinely and truly excited about. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Here's my chat with Alvin Law. Enjoy. Hey, Alvin, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living podcast. I got to tell you, I have been so looking forward to connecting with you for quite some time. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Well, I got to tell you, anybody who's got a banner behind them that says live life is kind of my kind of show, my kind of dude, and more than anything, frankly, my kind of philosophy. I know it sounds pretty cliche, right? But that's what we're going to talk about today. It's not a cliche. It's a way of living. We're all given one gift, and that's our life, and what we do with it is so much.
Man, Alvin, you took every possible word out of my mouth, because that's really what the philosophy and life mission is. So someone once told me that, and this really has been my platform, and and my mantra, my battle cry, all of that. And someone once told me that we've heard people talk about audacity, but we've never heard people speak to it as a life philosophy. And I gotta tell you, in my mind, I don't see how it can be. Like we've got one life, as you said, and it's a matter of taking that step forward. So you don't know what's in front of you, so that means you don't try something anyways, because you don't know how it'll turn out, right? And again, that's something that you definitely can speak to. So maybe as a starting point, give us a little bit about your history. What's got you to the point now? You have 40 years in speaking and touching and impacting lives. Like I said, I saw you 15 years ago, and I've never forgotten you. Tell our listeners a little about your backstory and what you're up to now.
Well, first of all, the backstory is everything. Even though I've told it thousands of times, literally, I was born without arms in 1960. I was one of Canada's first, what they called thalidomide babies, which I'll let your audience Google that one. It was a morning sickness medication given to pregnant women, and it got to be infamous for causing birth defects. Even though birth defects are a part of our nature in humanity, it does happen. It didn't happen as much as it did because of that drug. So it was a big thing in the early 60s. Lord knows what it would have been like had it been an internet era. But again, now we look back on that and we go, wow, that was a long time ago. Sure it was. I'm 65 years old. But whatever it did to all of the survivors, and there's thousands of them around the world, I was very fortunate in that it didn't become the negative in my life. We're going to get into a lot of perhaps what may appear to your audience predictable cliches. I don't think they're predictable. I think they're real. I always like to have another one in my speeches, but even in life, try to see the good in the bad. So let me tell you one more little part of this, which is critical to my story. I was also homeless when I was 5 days old.
Wow.
Now, not homeless in the classical sense, and my heart goes out to homeless people, especially this time of year around Christmas time.
Yep.
But I was given up because my birth family were too overwhelmed by the reality. Now, one could say the reality of having no arms. Sure. I like to say it was the reality of 1960.
Right.
We were not exactly as smart as we are today, even though we're not completely over the hill yet, brother, but we didn't know things. So we didn't know that people with disabilities could actually have a quality of life. That's a whole other speech. The reality is I am who I am today because I was taken in by foster parents who were in their mid-50s. Their names were Hilda and Jack Law, who planned to keep me for 6 weeks. And then I became their third child. My 2 older brothers had long since left. One was born in 1932. Believe this. 1936, the other one. In fact, because my parents were what we would today call empty nesters, my mom in particular wanted to have a mission. And it wasn't a religious mission, although she had a religious bend to her. It was about having empty bedrooms and unfortunate teenagers in particular that were not doing well in their family lives. Maybe they were involved in the court system. They would come to stay in our home. But here's the best phrase ever, man. My mom would say to them and my dad, we don't care what happened to you, but we do care what's going to happen. To have that kind of mindset, and I'm just talking about me now. I don't want to cast any shade on anybody who is struggling with their past. But the reality is our past should be in our past. Our future is what we should be looking for. And that was what I grew up with in Yorkton, Saskatchewan in the 60s and 70s. How better good could that be than that, right?
That's such a powerful mindset. It really, really is. Because for so many of us, our past beats us up. Like just does a number on us. And because of that, we can't think of the possibilities or options ahead of us. And so what I'd love to hear from you is if you could sort of, maybe, I don't know if you can identify a point or a period when you realize that life is full of choices and there's lots to do and there's options and nothing can hold you back.
Well, again, I hate to bring this up one more time, but I think it was the 60s. I think we were a different generation. I think there was a lot of that, but also here was another critical element. And I am biased, I admit it. I grew up in a small town in Saskatchewan. I didn't grow up in an urban environment where my life felt threatened like some people you may know. I grew up in an environment where everybody cared about each other. But because my parents were in their mid-50s, they'd established their lives. They had a social network. So let's just give you the perfect example. If my mom's going bowling to bowl with her friends, she'd take me along, even though I couldn't bowl. That wasn't the point. But the guy who owned the bowling arena said, I'm going to show you how to bowl. So he taught me to sit on my bum, feet on the lane, 5-pin balls. So it was a smaller ball and I would push it with my legs. And that's how I learned to bowl. Now, that is an example of not what we might today call inclusion. It was an example of small town Saskatchewan. And isn't it fun to have this little boy be part of our home life in this wonderful community? So that's what it was. I never felt hated. I wasn't bullied. I mean, there was a couple of bad actors, but a lot of people think my life was miserable. It was the opposite. So that's why I decided to take advantage of my story and share that with people, not to brag on what I've done, but to challenge people and make them look at their lives and say, what are you seeing? What are you looking at? Are you seeing what you got, or are you seeing what you're missing? And that's critical when you don't have any arms, right?
Well, absolutely, absolutely, and I love the emphasis on the importance of environment and how important our environment is to our upbringing, our nurturing, our growth, and overall development. I think that's fabulous. Excuses is something that doesn't work well with you. You don't do well with excuses, and that's something that a lot of people sort of use. Oh, my past was this, and I didn't have this, and I'm wondering, looking from the other way, why do you feel excuses are so comforting to people?
Well, I think to be quite blunt about this, and this is not a disrespect for people, I think we're insecure. I think human beings are afraid to fail. I think they're afraid to take that step because they know what it feels like to fail. Could you imagine having no arms from birth? I failed at everything. I mean, literally everything. I didn't just learn to use these one day because it was automatic. In fact, the first memory I have was learning to sew buttons on rags in the basement of her home in Little Yorkton, Saskatchewan, because my mom had a sewing machine she would use to make extra income by doing people's clothes. So I was apparently quite a precocious child. So one day, literally, she gave me a rag, about 25 buttons, a needle, some thread, and she said, "So now I want you to picture sewing with your toes, button on a rag, 25 buttons. I'd do them all. I'd be proud of myself. You know what she'd do? Cut them off and say, do it again." My dad was a mechanic. He'd bring home nuts and bolts from work, little ones, big ones, and I would screw them on and off and on and off and on and off, hours at a time. Why? Obviously, so I could one day go out and be a motivational speaker and dazzle folks.
Right.
No, mom and dad knew a simple fact of life. And again, I don't mean to be anything regarding the way your people watching this or listening to this may feel. That doesn't mean life isn't fair. Life can be very unfair. I never thought of it that way. I thought, this is the one I got. This is what I'm going to learn to do. But I learned to fail. When you learn to fail, then you start to realize that is the significant step towards success. Again, I don't think it's an easy fix for some people. Got their histories, they've got their stories. But here's also the most important thing. I think we need to regard ourselves with great gratitude. And that is what misses when we're starting to look at all the reasons we can't do something. We forget how lucky we are. And this sounds so preachy, brother, to have what we've got, right?
Keep it coming. Keep it coming. No. As much as it does, it's what you're speaking of, Alvin, is nothing but truth, and 100%. And what I like about you approach your parents, and I'll let you know. So I've got a daughter who's on the autism spectrum, and I will tell you, I am constantly challenging what she does and how far she can go. So a few years ago here in Toronto, Canada, we had I'm a basketball guy, so our Toronto Raptors won the championship, right? So they decided to have a championship parade in downtown Toronto. Millions and millions of people were there. For any normal person, that's sensory overload times 10. For someone who was on the autism spectrum, that's a whole other level. And I said to my daughter, I brought my 3 kids. I said to my daughter, I said, we're going to go. And I took her down there. And I will tell you, to this day, I always laugh at it. Her younger brother, who was considered normal, was more of a handful than she was. Like, it was right? And so when you talk about what your parents did, and they push it, they didn't give you any excuses. They challenged you to be able to grow, develop, and do so much more. And what that does, and I get you to comment, by using your feet as hands, I can certainly see where that does to build your confidence and even your self-belief in yourself.
Well, and here's a real good one, and this is one that I've actually created over time as a speaker. Yeah. And I'm going to ask your audience, and this is going to come back at you in a minute here, Audley. What are the 2 most powerful words in human language? 2 words put together. It's a trick question. A lot of people say, love you, or they say, thank you. I'll give you the answer. I don't want to keep people hanging. Here it is. I'm pregnant. Think about it. When you say those words, and typically a female says those words, I'm joking, but in reality, those 2 words change the pathway of our human life.
Yes.
All right? Because they clearly, it's a big deal. But here's my reason for mentioning it. Oddly, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, sir, but I have a line in my show that says, what do we do when we hold our babies for the first time? We count their fingers and we count the toes, right? It's a cliche. But what happens when we have an imperfect child? I'm not suggesting your daughter's imperfect. That's kind of the point. In fact, if I may be audacious and say this, she may be the only person in the room that knows she's autistic.
Right.
Because that's her normal. That's the way she functions. The challenge isn't hers. The challenge is yours. And how we raise our children, because we want to have perfect children. What happens when they're not? See, my mom and dad had no expectations. They took me home because that was their job, so to speak. But they were also not embarrassed to have a little boy without arms. In fact, to be quite blunt about this, I think it changed the fabric of our community. And, you talk about remembering me. That's very flattering. I get stories of people that remember me from the time that I was 3 or 4 years old. Here's the better question for your audience. What are you doing to be memorable? Are you creating a positive moment that people want to talk about? Or are you creating a negative moment? And I'm not judging. I'm just saying, haven't we all been around somebody, you're around it for 30 seconds, it was 25 seconds too long?
Yeah.
Don't be one of those people. No matter how bad the world gets, vocalize, share on social media, which I frankly have a hard time with. But the reality is, my parents taught me, if you're going to be memorable, what are people going to remember about you, Alvin?
That's it, and that's exactly. I love again that frame of thinking, that line, because it allows you to really focus on who you are and what you stand for. Am I doing the things that are in line with the person I want to be? Am I demonstrating that through my actions? All these things are key. We kind of think that nothing, like we kind of think that like if I do this over here, and it's not congruent with over here, it's still okay. Well, no, you're the same person, right? Like you've got to be congruent in all of your actions. And I do appreciate you saying that. I got to tell you, Alvin, the other thing that I really love about your approach is the humor that you instill. It's something that it just resonates in a big way, and I would imagine that's been really helpful when you sort of go through life, and whether it's managing maybe discomfort or misunderstandings or even people's beliefs about you. Like, and here's a little subtle thing that you do that I chuckle at. The signature of your email, you've got little emojis of feet, right?
Yes.
I think it's hilarious.
I want to show you something. Thanks for bringing it up. So I'm not product dropping here. Okay. I'm trying to figure out the best one to show you.
Okay.
I'm going to show you this one on my camera. See the little feet? There they are.
Yeah.
Now, look at them close, though. What else are they besides a pair of feet?
There's a bit of a glare, so it's not as clear. I can't make it out, Alvin. What is it? Oh, hearts.
They're hearts. I've been drawing my feet ever since I can remember when I started speaking in the early 80s.
Yeah.
People would ask for my autograph. It was weird, man. I didn't think I was a celebrity.
Right.
But, especially in Saskatchewan, it's kind of easy to be a celebrity in Saskatchewan. Anyway, I would draw these little feet, kind of like I was thinking of them as the Hang 10 feet, but they're not the Hang 10 feet. They're my feet. They're actually trademarked because I drew them. But when my graphic artist that we hired to do my new website, and look up alvinlaw.com, there's the commercial announcement. He said, do you realize that those are hearts? Man, I never thought about it. All I saw was feet. So there's something that is very, very important. And my wife, Darlene, I've been with her since 1991. She's an energy expert. She's a feng shui master. She does Reiki, all those woo-woo things we call it. She says the heart is everything. It is the way that we function as human beings. I think that's why we're feeling, not to get into this because I don't want to talk about this at all, but that's why we're feeling this weird funk going on, especially in America. There's so much negativity floating around because people are and were angry. I get it. I get angry too. But anger doesn't do any, I know this may sound contrived, and I hope you don't take this like a cliche as well. I grew up listening to my father quoting Martin Luther King.
Okay.
I don't know why my dad did that. My dad was a white guy in rural Saskatchewan. But what he said was it had nothing to do with the man's color. It had everything to do. Here was his favorite quote, and I paraphrase. Think of life like this, like Dr. King says. Instead of worrying about what people see on the outside, how about your character? That's what my dad would say. How about your character? People are going to stare at your difference. But Alvin, you're not different. And the more character you develop as a human being, the more you can touch people with your story. But more than anything, the more you can live your authentic life, then you will be a success. My dad was a blue-collar mechanic. He never had a bunch of money. We didn't live in a fancy house. We drove an old car. Yet there was over 900 people at his funeral. Why? Because he was a service manager for an implement dealership that fixed trucks and tractors in rural Saskatchewan. Talk about honoring the lives we're given.
Oh, I love that. And I'm such a proponent of impact, right? And the impact in the lives that we have, right? And the beautiful thing about that, the impact can be really small and subtle. Like I remember one day I went to work one day and I ran out for some lunch, and I came back and I had like a still pizza. I like pizza. I wanted pizza for lunch. So I had the box in my hand and I was about to go to the elevator, and they were about to close, and a gentleman came up to me and he was trying to get directions, and he was asking like, oh, which floor? And I'm going to myself, I want to get in the elevator. I want to go up so I can eat my pizza, right? But I want to help this guy. So you literally could see the conundrum in my face, because I was really like, so I said, and I helped him. And the woman in the elevator, she saw and she held the door open for me, right? Little small, subtle thing, right? But I go in the elevator, and all of a sudden it became this, oh, it was so nice of you. And we had this, and other people were in the elevator watching. We all had this wonderful conversation. They get off on the 4th floor. I'm going up to the 6th, and literally all of them get off on the same floor. And I can literally hear one guy say to another person, he's a really nice guy. And I was incredibly just touched because I wasn't setting out to try to be a nice guy. Someone asked for help, and I was struggling. And if you saw me, you could tell I really wanted that pizza. Like I really wanted that pizza because I wanted. But I said, let me help this guy, and to know that our actions can have those types of ripple effects. That's really when we talk about impact. That's what we're talking about. Making it a little. It doesn't have to be this big monumental movement of mountains. It can be little small acts, and that's kind of what I take stock in and pride in.
Is that old fashioned or is it something that we need to revisit? That's what I don't know because I'm not, this is the one that I'm not sure of. And I mean this.
I think it's forgotten. I think the impact, because here's what I believe, Alvin. I think if we remember, if people truly remember and kept in mind the kind of impact that those actions can have, I think we'd slow down as a society. I think we'd be more kinder and gentler and have more compassion with ourselves. But that's forgotten, I think.
Well, and the other thing too, and I'm going to be really blunt about this one as well.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that we've allowed social media to make us believe that the world is going to you know where.
Yes.
That's what we've been taught to believe. I don't believe that for a minute. I mean, I'll give you a perfect, what you just said, just nailed it. All right. Yeah. I'm the other day, I've got my car, I'm getting gas. Now, you want to picture that, I drive, right? People don't know that.
I love that.
My right foot on the wheel, my left
I love it. Gas.
All I need is automatic transmission. I can drive any car. So I rent cars a lot, which means that I'm always having to drive cars I'm not familiar with. But that also means that, you know, I got to get gas in the car before I take it back to the airport. I'm getting gas in a car somewhere. I can't even remember where this happened, down in the States. And just a perfect example. It happens to me all the time. Imagine I'm standing there. I can actually put the pump into the gas place in the car with my foot. I stand up with my foot. This guy comes over and he almost gives me heck. He says, "What are you doing?" I went, "Oh, is it obvious I'm getting gas? Ha, ha, ha." He goes, "No, here he has, I can see you got no arms. Let me help you. Why didn't you ask for help?" I went, "That's just not my nature." He comes over and takes over, pumps the gas, finishes it up, takes it up, puts it back in the pump, gets the receipt, gives it to me, and he says, "Never be embarrassed to need help, brother." And then he walked away. Now, my point is that happens to me all the time. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's about him. Yeah. The choices that he made to help another human being. How many times do you think that guy has told that story about running into a dude with no arms and helping him pump the gas?
Absolutely.
Right? We can create stories.
Yes.
We don't have to be a speaker. We don't have to be an executive. We don't have to be a gold medal winning athlete. We can be everyday people that make huge impacts on other individuals by simply being giving. Be a giver, man, not a taker.
So yes, I love that too. I feel like a broken record. I keep saying I love, but I love what you're saying. I think for me, I want to go back to this, the power of our stories, because stories is what we tell ourselves, right? Yeah. But the thing that we oftentimes forget is that story can be whatever we make it to be. Like if we want to be the hero, the villain, or whatever, we can be that character. And why this is important is because when people let's be blunt here, bad things that happen to people. Like that's what part of life is. Bad things are going to happen. But when people oftentimes tell their stories, the stories end when the bad stuff happens. Like this will happen, and that's where the story ends. And for me, I'm like, no, it's getting good. Get the popcorn and tell me what you did next. How did you get out of it? Who did you help? How did it make a difference? That's where the value of the story. So it really goes back to the point. We do have a point where we make a choice of what story, what version of story that we want to tell.
I have a question for your audience. This is another one that's a test, all right, brother?
Yeah.
How many of you remember the COVID promise?
The
you know
promise?
What the COVID promise is?
Oh.
When we were in the middle of shutdown and we were not going anywhere and we were stuck in our houses or stuck wherever we were, and I don't mean that in a negative way, we were stuck. Yeah. We didn't have a lot of choice. People don't like that. They don't like not being able to pick or choose. But we made a promise to ourselves, didn't we? If this ends, I'm going to be a very different person. I'm going to take advantage of my freedom. I'm going to be kinder to people. I'm going to be more gentle. I'm not going to take my freedom for granted. Did we forget the promise? Because it feels a little bit like we did.
You're right.
And we're cheating ourselves, because when we make a promise to ourselves, we have to follow through. Now, if it doesn't work out, that's a whole other thing. But we talk about honoring the world. What about honoring ourselves?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You talked about driving and sewing. There's no limitations. You clearly, whatever it is that you want to do, and you just go out and do it. You play the piano too, Alvin. Like, let's sort of talk. I wonder if you sort of talk about that aspect of who you are, because now I'm sure people who haven't heard of you are going, "What? What do you mean he plays the piano?" But you play.
Well, we've got some time here. If you look over my shoulder, I'm going to slide my chair back in a minute and play my
Yeah.
drums for you, just to show you. But the story of the piano is one of my favorite stories, and it was real. Every story is real.
Yes.
I wanted to play the piano as a child, 9 years old, in Yorkton, Saskatchewan. Why? Because I wasn't going to be an athlete. And I just knew that. I mean, all jokes aside about football or soccer, whichever it's called, the joke is I never get the penalty for touching the ball with my hands. Ha ha. But the reality was I was not athletic. It's just the way I was. I was musical. I loved to sing. I loved to dance. I didn't look good when I danced, but I wanted to play the piano. So mom, being a typical mom, took me to a lady, a typical piano teacher, to get lessons at 9 years old. What kid doesn't get lessons when they're little, right? And I wanted to play so bad with my feet, of course.
Yep. Yep.
The lady wasn't mean. It was just honest. She says, look how short your toes are, Alvin. You're never going to play music because your toes are too short.
Right.
She was dead on, man. They're still short. Difference was I still wanted to play music, but I needed somebody to intervene in my life to give me an opportunity to play. I'll give you the extreme short version of one of the most critical stories of my life. I played in school band when a band director in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, who insisted that I be a part of that group, put a trombone on the side of a wooden chair with metal rods and clamps that I played with my foot, like this. Wow. I played a trombone. It's on my website. You can see the pictures. So that led to the band. Band led to being in a group of people that not only became my friends, but I got a line I made up. Musicians don't care what you look like. They have a question. Can you play? Trombone led to jazz. Jazz led to the drums. And drums led to this. Now, it's going to get a little loud. I want you to be ready, but this is a perfect example, all right?
Awesome. It went quiet there. We didn't hear all of it. It went quiet the album, but we saw you in action, which is awesome.
So what it did was it overmodulated on the microphone, okay?
Okay.
But you heard the drum. You saw what I did. Here's the point.
Yes.
I still play a drum in every show as a speaker. Why? So I can say, look at me, look at me, look at me. No, because I want people to create a memory. Yes. And the memory is, yes, it's about me. I will acknowledge that. But what the memory is about, and maybe you can share your memory, is it's like a mirror. I'm holding up a mirror to people. I'm saying, here, look at yourself.
Yep.
Look at yourself.
Yep.
If I can do this, I know this sounds so ridiculous. If I can do this, then you can do anything. All right. But we have to work hard at this, brother. Sometimes it's really, really hard. But at the end of the day, music changed my life. Yeah. Not just playing, because of course I play the whole kit, but just to give you one final perfect example, people still remember the drum. I've got people come up to me and say, I remember when you came to my school in 1987 and you played the drum with your foot and you told us about how important it is to see what a person has, not what they don't.
Yes. Yeah.
We need more of me, not just Alvin. We need more of me, more of you. We need more shows like this. We need more positive influence on the planet to restore our faith in humanity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, again, if I were, I talk about my memory and watching it, and I vividly remember you playing the piano, and that the whole thought of potential was all that went in my. Like you demonstrated the power of potential in the face of limitations. That's all I thought about. And to this day, that's the only memory that's the most powerful memory that resonates with the power of potential when I think of Alvin Laws. And so that's I think it's a beautiful illustration.
Well, let me pad this with your story about the Raptors.
Yeah.
I happened to be in Toronto for a conference I was speaking at the day that the Toronto won. I was downtown at a hotel when the parade, the celebration one, not the official one, broke out all over downtown Toronto.
Yes.
Celebration. God, I can just imagine if the Blue Jays would have won the World Series. I'm still pouting about that one. But here's the point.
Yeah.
Let's watch. Look at that team. Look at the Raptors. Look at the Blue Jays this year. Look at my Saskatchewan Roughriders. Yay. That doesn't happen because of one solo impact, one solo effort. That game 7 or game 6, I guess it was, when Toronto won, that was one heck of an ending. Of course it was. But it wasn't one game. It wasn't one shot. It wasn't one pass. It was an entire culture of belief of, yes, I can. Yes, I can. And when you put that together as a team, you can theoretically do anything. And that's true of office culture. It's true of anything in your community. How do we treat each other at the grocery store? How do we treat each other in restaurants? How are we treating wait staff? How are we treating, this is one of my favorite ones, how do we treat people that make our beds in hotels that I stay at when I go to speak at events? They're just as important as the CEO of Marriott, okay? Everybody matters. Everybody matters.
They do. So Alvin, I'd love to hear then if you can talk about, and again, you have a powerful presentation. How do you move audiences sort of from inspiration into action?
Well, I basically don't do anything. It's a given. You know, people just watch it and they internalize it and they think about it. My wife says, and she's heard me thousands of times, right? She just doesn't even go into my shows anymore. Not because she doesn't care. She runs the company. Here's what she says. She can watch the people's switch go off. Little internal switch that goes off. And it goes from being, look at this amazing guy up on stage, to where people start to internalize their own lives. And I want to say this, very important to say this. Yes, some of us have tough lives.
Yes.
This time of year can be very, very difficult at Christmas for people. And I know I'm kind of time stamping this podcast.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And we can all say Merry Christmas, and we can all say Happy Holiday. We can all say Happy Hanukkah. We can say all these wonderful, positive, smiley things. Yet there's some people that aren't smiling. There's some people that are sad. There's some people that have experienced loss. No kidding. I still miss my parents. They're both gone a long time, but that doesn't mean we can't try to figure out a way to have gratitude.
Yeah.
That's everything.
I'm such a big fan of even asking yourself, okay, now what? So yes, this unfortunate thing that's happened to you. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's difficult. Now what? Do you stay? Or do you think about what your next steps are for? Because we know what here. So if you stay, we know what here feels like, right? And we know it doesn't feel good. Is this where you choose to stay? And I purposely inserted the word choose because it is an absolute choice. For someone listening right now who feels limited, they feel stuck, what's the kind of the first honest question they need to be asking themselves?
What's holding me back from living out my dreams? What's holding me back from trying something new? What's holding me back from taking another class or enrolling in a program? It can be a simple little thing. Okay, we got a little bit of a break during the Christmas season, if we want to call it that.
Yeah.
What's holding me back? Well, read a book. Not just on, you can read an electronic book, I suppose. Go to a bookstore, go to the library. You don't even have to pay there. Read books about people that have done it. Read Michael Jordan's book. Read LeBron James's book. Read books of people that have done amazing things in the face of huge challenge. It doesn't create necessarily a roadmap.
Right.
But I've always said, if somebody else can do this, why can't you?
Yeah.
An audacious challenge again. It's not meant to be insensitive, but it simply reminds us again, you know what? This is the key. And I know this is going to be another one that people are going to maybe roll their eyes a little bit because sometimes you don't get to pick. Who do you spend time with? That is the most critical thing there is. Who do you spend time with? People get around me and they see how positive I am. You should see my wife to see how positive she is. And here's a really good example, maybe the best story ever as we start to get to the end of this. My wife is deaf.
Wow.
That's new. Now, what do you mean that's new? 2 years ago, she had to acknowledge the fact that her hearing had degraded to a point caused by genetic that she needed what's called a cochlear implant.
Yes.
Get your audience to look that one up too. Cochlear, Cochlear, implant. It's embedded in her skull. There's a processor. It's like a computer. It's connected by a magnet to an external microphone. The microphone is not a hearing aid. It's a hearing solution. And it creates this message inside of her skull where the amazing brains we have transpose the messages coming from the computer into her cochlear, and that's how she hears. I want you to picture this. At 64 years old, my wife had to completely change the way she looked at life. And I got to give her credit. How would you do? How would I do? I have no idea. How would we do having that significant a change in our lives at an age of 64 years old? Well, you should see her today. she is an even better example than I am, my brother, because she had to encounter a thing in midlife. My whole thing has been my whole life. So we're all up against something. We're all up against something. It's all how we handle it, who we help get us through this, but more than anything, what we're saying in our own minds about what we are capable of.
Yep. Alvin, this has been awesome. One thing I like to do here, and we definitely are going to do with you before we get out of here, we call this a fearless fast round. I throw it out, rapid fire questions. You tell me first thing that comes to mind, okay? How's it feel? Yeah. So one word you live by.
Gratitude.
A belief that you had to unlearn.
That I can't.
It's interesting because the next question is something people assume incorrectly about you.
That I'm incapable of having a normal life.
A daily mindset practice.
Wake up with joy and celebration for the life we're given.
Your definition of courage.
You got to do what you got to do.
One thing adversity taught you early on.
Life's not fair, but that's okay.
That's actually, I like that one a lot. What's the most dangerous excuse that people make?
They're afraid to fail. I can't try. I'll fail.
Yeah. Funny the things we tell ourselves, isn't it? Like we just repeatedly. That's that one.
Actually, it's also funny what people have told us about ourselves that we've acknowledged rather than the other stuff. If someone says you're ugly 3 or 4 times, people think I'm ugly. No, you're not.
No, you're not. That's just someone's opinion. That's right. A quote that you turn to often.
There's no such word as can't.
Something that still challenges you.
Having a positive mindset in an increasingly negative society.
And then lastly, Alvin, what living audaciously truly means to you.
It means realizing that we have an ability to have an impact on others. We have to ask ourselves a question. What exactly is that? What are we leaving behind? In fact, if I can add one more thing, I've got a fascination with this expression. First impressions are everything. No, they're not. The most important impression is the one we leave behind. What are we leaving behind?
Oh, and this has been great. I can't say enough about how delighted I am to spend this time with you. You're someone who I've admired for a very, very long time, and it's a bit of a thrill to kind of have this kind of conversation with you. And it's funny. The timing of life is just a wonderful thing. It's literally taken 15 years to have this conversation, right? But now is the perfect time to have this conversation. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you do. We're going to make sure everyone heads over to your website, alvinlaw.com. We're going to make sure the links in our show notes and have them check you out, engage with you, learn out, find out where you're speaking, or better yet, invite you out to speak to their groups. And thank you for doing this. And I appreciate you being a guest on the Audacious Living podcast.
And thank you for you living your life audaciously, my brother. Merry Christmas.
Same here, man. Right back at you, Alvin. Thank you. Let me just stop that. This is good. All right, welcome back. And I've got to say, Alvin's perspective on life is something that really stays with you long after the conversation ends. If you're someone who's navigating a difficult season right now, today's conversation is a powerful reminder that adversity doesn't automatically define your future. What matters is the meaning you choose to give it. One of the things that really stood out to me was Alvin talking about gratitude and responsibility. Despite these circumstances he was born into, he made a conscious decision not to let those circumstances become his limitations. Instead, he turned them into the foundation for a life of impact. And that mindset shift is so powerful. Sometimes the obstacle you're facing is actually your greatest teacher. It's time for an audacious insight, a quick look at something happening in the world that reflects the power of bold thinking, and intentional action. Now, before the Harry Potter series became a global phenomenon, J.K. Rowling was a single mother living on welfare who faced rejection after rejection from publishers. In fact, the manuscript for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was turned down 12 times before a small publishing finally decided to take a chance on it. That decision changed the publishing world and created one of the most successful literary franchises in history. Sometimes the only difference between failure and success is the courage to keep going one more time. Make sure you connect with Alvin. He's like I said, he's been an inspiring audience for decades through keynote speaking, storytelling, and his powerful message of resilience and gratitude. We'll include the links in the show notes so you can connect with him and learn more about his work and follow what he's doing. If this conversation resonated with you, do me a favor, share it with someone who might be going through a tough season right now. And if you haven't already, make sure and follow the Audacious Living podcast, leave a review, and help us continue spreading these conversations about growth, resilience, and living boldly. Thanks so much for joining us today. And until next time, keep living life audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious.